What was the most successful prank you've ever pulled? Back in university, my housemate used to live off tinned food. He would have a massive variety of soups, curries and veggies in his cupboards, but all tinned. I'm talking dozens of tins filling up the whole cupboard. He would be the only one who survived a nuclear bomb. I came up with this idea where I carefully removed the label off a tin of chicken soup and stuck it onto a tin of value cat food I had bought in the supermarket for this purpose. That evening he was about to eat dinner and of course I was saying, "Oh, what are you having for dinner, Jimmy?" How about some chicken soup?" Somehow I persuaded him and he didn't smell a rat. He picked a tin of soup and opened it and it was chicken soup. Oh well, I thought. Another time. 2 weeks pass and I've sort of forgotten about the tin when he is in the kitchen making dinner and we hear him saying in an alarmed voice, "Guys, what do you think of this soup? Looks a bit funny to me." At this point I couldn't breathe due to laughing so hard. One summer when my cousin was staying with us, he and I had a small prank war going on against one another. We decided to put our talents together and try to prank everyone else. We put small piles of flour on each blade of the ceiling fan in the living room, just enough to not be seen from the ground. A few weeks went by and nothing happened and we had forgotten about it. And then, the day finally came. My mom had company over. I was in the kitchen and I heard all kinds of shouting, screaming coming from the living room. My cousin ran up to me grinning and said, "It's happening." The living room looked like it had just snowed inside. Everything was coated in a dusting of flour. My mother was screaming. Her guests were staring in confusion and the dogs were running around in circles. It was so amazing, until we had to clean it all up. Carefully not to do that near an open flame. Airborne flour is extremely flammable. I set up a fake email address for the Narwhal Appreciation Society and sent a coworker an email from the address saying, "We at the Narwhal Appreciation Society have been informed that you, too, have an affinity for this majestic creature and we wanted to see if you would like to join our society." He responded with, "Thanks for the email. Not sure who referred me, but I don't have any interest at joining your society. Good luck." A couple of weeks later, I emailed him again and listed off the membership dues for the society and upcoming events. He responded with, "Once again, please note that I am not interested. Please take me off your distribution list." A few weeks later, I emailed him a note that his membership dues were in arrears, commenting that the faithful narwhal would most assuredly pay its bills if it used currency. I emailed him roughly 2-3x per year for 3-4 years. For the first year, when we still worked together, I'd see him open the email, shake his head and say aloud, "Not these freaking guys again," but he never attempted to block the email address. He responded to some, becoming increasingly agitated, and ignored others. In one response, he attached pictures of dead narwhals that had been killed by Inuit hunters and said, "This is what I think of your stupid narwhal. I hate them. I wish them all dead." I eventually stopped and never mentioned to him that it was me, but years later, a few co-workers were out for pints and one guy said to me, "Whatever happened with that narwhal crap you were doing?" And my pranked co-worker's eyes bugged out of his head. "That was you." This reminds me of cat facts. My late husband was a weather nerd and loved inclement weather. One time I was home alone and a huge storm was imminent. I taped the weather warnings. A few days later it was a beautiful sunny day, not a cloud in the sky. We were watching TV and as soon as he walked into the kitchen to fetch a beer, I started playing the warnings. It was so funny. He kept running outside to check the sky. I laughed so hard, and so did he when I fessed up. This is very wholesome. Thank you for sharing. I'm sorry for your loss. For our high school senior prank at my boarding school, we snuck out in the middle of the night and stole the athletic director's prized golf cart. We pushed it up a hill to the school. One of our friends was able to get keys from a custodian and let us in a back door. We got the golf cart into the building and then into a science classroom and lifted it up onto the big lab tables. We decorated it with nonsense and left it there and locked everything up. In the morning, everyone not in on it was completely confused about how the heck we had pulled it off. We didn't even damage anything. Even the chain we had to cut to get the golf cart free was replaced, with a note, "On our athletic director's doorstep." The custodial staff wasn't even mad at having to take the cart out because it was so ridiculous. I can only imagine the double take that the teacher did when he entered his class that day. My senior class did something like this to our principal. His truck was loaded onto the stage where everyone was giving the end of the year speeches. He had no idea how we did it. In my senior year in high school, there were 3 of us who took satellite language courses. 2 of us were taking Japanese, while the 3rd student took a German course that aired after the Japanese one. It was proctored in-house by one of the gym teachers, and because we were generally good and smart kids, he left us to our own devices. This mostly meant that we flirted mercilessly with each other while ignoring the teacher who couldn't hear or see us on the TV. Early on, the young lady who took German mentioned that she liked buying and wearing men's jeans, rather than women's, for whatever reason, and also mentioned that she wore a 30 waist. I was a 34 at the time, but every so often, maybe every other week, I would bring up that I could fit in what she wore. She'd say there was no way, but I would mention that I'd have to suck in my gut, and I wouldn't be comfortable, but I could do it for a minute or so, just long enough to prove I was right, which is honestly the most important part. Finally, after a few months of this, she very sternly tells me that she's tired of hearing my baseless claims, and that I should cease making them. This led to me very sadly asking if she was telling me there was no way that I was ever going to get in her pants. The very bright red she turned at realizing that this had been a several month setup for a very stupid joke was worth everything to me. Holy crap, that is one of the best setups to a joke I have ever heard. Thank you for sharing this. When I was 13, I told my mom my alarm stopped working and asked her to wake me up in the morning. So I stayed up until she went to bed and snuck downstairs. I took a jar of Vaseline and put the Vaseline on my doorknob and went to sleep. The next morning my mom woke me up by screaming, "What the F? WHO does something like that. You just gave me a wonderful idea." 1998, I was in 4th grade and got my hands on a universal remote watch. At the time it was super high tech and nobody had heard of such a thing. I would sneakily turn the classroom TV on every 5 minutes. The teacher, who I despised, was convinced that ghosts were in the room. She unplugged it after the 3rd or 4th time. We told our tech illiterate teacher to hold the power cord higher so the energy would flow better. She complied. A successful but unsuccessful one. I saw a friend walking ahead of me, so did the old tap on the shoulder but run past on the other side maneuver. However, while concentrating on him I didn't see the park bench, ran into it at full speed, and collapsed behind it. Through the gaps in the seat I could see my friend looking left and right, almost freaking out, wondering who had tapped him in the shoulder. The tears from the pain in my leg kept me from laughing and giving myself away for about 20 seconds. Task failed successfully. This is more serious now than it was a prank before. When me and my 3 other brothers were young, we hid from our dad when he came home from work. We never responded to him calling our names, nor made a peep. We thought we were the perfect little ninjas. Well, he decided to go to the neighbor's house to see if we were over there, but when he finds out we weren't, he calls my mother in distress saying we were all gone and nowhere to be found. My mom comes home crying and they're getting ready to call the police when we pop out from our hiding spots. They were not happy, lol. We all got the belt that day. You should have came out while he was at the neighbor's house, and when he came back just acted like you were there all along. Not my story, but a friend of mine, Dan, was talking to his co-worker, John, about one of his favorite desserts. Said dessert was a combination of chocolate pudding, corn, peanut butter, and mandarin oranges. This was not even a real dessert. Dan just threw together ingredients that would be disgusting. Dan told John how great it was. John was skeptical, so Dan promised to bring him some the next day. Dan went home and he and his wife concocted a mixture of these ingredients and some more and packed it up for John to have the next day. When Dan gave it to John, he made a face, smelt it, and very hesitantly took a bite. He chewed and swallowed while Dan tried to hold in his laughter. Then John goes, "Wow, this is good," and proceeded to eat the entire container. Dan did not see this coming. I was probably 10-11 and my mom had just made brownies, the soft chewy kind. I was one of those kids that constantly played with my food, so I was squishing up brownies into bite-sized balls and quickly noticed that they looked strikingly like cat poop. So I fashioned them into cat turds and placed them in my sister's room to gross her out. She found them shortly after and started to freak out. Then I casually walked in like whoa, what's going on, and proceeded to pick one up, eat it in front of her and comment on the nutty taste. I have never seen her more horrified in my life, but I felt like a true mastermind that day. Plot twist, you accidentally ate the real cat poop. Cooking at school. Different parts of the menu were prepared by different people. The girl tasked with the fruit salad was halving grapes when I passed her, so I commented that she wasn't peeling them. Were we supposed to do that? Of course. Didn't you listen? Asked the teacher. A long time later, I had already forgotten the matter, not expecting to be taken seriously. I heard our teacher yell at her. What are you doing? Poor girl was almost done peeling a pound of grapes. My friends and I rearranged my college roommate's room and covered absolutely everything in tinfoil. He was just getting back from a trip and rolled in with his suitcase. He is overly dramatic and thus a great victim. We were watching TV when he goes to his room and I hear, "Oh my god." He huffs out and says the most dad comment ever. "Why would you do this? If this isn't cleaned up by the time I get back from work." He goes to work. We tinfoiled his suitcase. This is top notch and not too time consuming, as opposed to my all-time favorite, leaving a room with cups of water everywhere. A buddy of mine from high school went by the nickname TD. One day, my brother asked me what TD stands for, so I look at him like he's an idiot and say Tyrone Draconus. Duh, this name came out of nowhere. I had no intentions before that moment of deceiving him, so I nonchalantly go back to whatever I was doing. Brother freaks out saying that's the best name ever and is so excited he can't wait to surprise TD with knowing his name at school tomorrow. Thing is, TD stands for Theodore David. I get to school about 30 minutes before my brother and start explaining to everyone the situation. And to go along with it, even TD is on board. So, from end of August until early mid-May, every time my brother sees TD in the halls he shouts Tyrone Draconus. At one point another classmate of mine tried to correct him, but she had a bad reputation with me, bullied me when we first moved there, so naturally he didn't believe her. Then came graduation day when my mom spoiled it. Yes, my parents were in on it too. Brother didn't want to attend commencement, and as a bargaining tool she said, "Don't you want to hear TD's name announced several times?" After a couple hours of that, brother comes up to me and asks, "TD's name isn't really Tyrone Draconus, is it?" I proceed to blow his mind with this elaborate ruse that spawned from one spontaneous moment several months prior. Picture this, you're at your locker, just trying to get ready for your first class when a kid your acquaintances walks in and shouts at 7 AM. "Tyrone Draconus." I would be dying of laughter the moment he yelled Tyrone. I bought $100 worth of Pepsi cans and hid them around my roommate's room. He moved out in August and he's still finding them. In the army the duties rotated. When it was my turn to clean the toilets I had prepared some chocolate pudding. I scrubbed the toilet seats exceptionally clean, then left a thin but clearly visible brown line of the pudding on one of the seats. During inspection the lieutenant saw it and yelled for the person responsible for the bathroom that day. I raised my hand and followed him into the stall with the dirty seat. "What's this?" he said. I dipped my finger in the pudding, smelled it, then slowly licked my finger as if I was tasting it, and said, "It's poo, but I don't know whose." This is where I usually stop when I tell this story. The lieutenant was a hilarious guy. After a few intense seconds he cracked up and started laughing, then simply told me to clean it in case his commanding officer would drop by. I had heard about this prank somewhere before, but I can't remember from where, but at least I did it myself. I did a similar thing to my wife. I made a fake cat turd out of a brownie and left it in the bathtub, then ate it when she discovered it. Props to you for actually tasting it from a toilet seat, though. I don't know if this counts as a prank, but my dad is a huge fan of the series Scrubs, and there's a gag where a character puts a pancake in the silverware drawer and this exchange happens. Why is there a pancake in the silverware drawer? You mean why is there silverware in the pancake drawer? So, just for laughs, I made pancakes and put one in our silverware drawer, waiting idly by in the kitchen for him to need a fork or something. I watch all giddy as he, confused, takes the pancake out and asks what's a pancake doing in the silverware drawer. Without missing a beat, I say, "You mean what is silverware doing in the pancake drawer?" I didn't think it would actually work. He got a real kick out of that. A+. Harmless prank. People get to eat pancakes, scrubs, sharing a moment with your dad. Ever had chocolate covered Oreos? I made some at college once and brought some home for my sister. About a month later, I was home and made another batch and left them at home for her when I went back to college. After making them, I replaced the majority with a chocolate covered monstrosity, Ritz crackers, with tuna salad sandwich between them, covered in chocolate. They look just like the Oreos. She texted me angrily the next day. The first one she'd eaten was an Oreo, but the one after that was the chocolate tuna cracker. She hated me. It was great. I did the Olay Fun Snack mix at work. Some M&Ms, Reese's Pieces, and Skittles in a bowl on my desk free to take. Many swear words were said that day. Told my sister that orange soda tastes better the more you shake it before opening. Edit. Thanks for the gold and upvotes, friends. The hilarity of this depends entirely on her age when the prank was pulled. So I went to a Catholic high school. I had a work-study volunteer job in the office to help with tuition. Part of this job involved printing letters and stuffing envelopes to parents and alumni. Fast forward to spring break time senior year. I get my hands on some of the stationery and envelopes and type up a letter to parents informing them that after careful consideration, the school has decided to place the health of its students above the arcane regulations against the use of condoms. Thus the school was going to be providing protection at the junior and senior proms. I typed this up at home and hit a kinkus but only had enough for about half the senior class to get a letter. So I just mail merged every other student, stuffed the letters, and dropped them in the outgoing mail basket my next shift. Skip forward 3 days and crap hits the fan. Lots of kids are talking about this. The school is inundated with half super P conservative Catholic parents and half backpackers saying it's about time. The school sends out a letter to all parents telling them to disregard the previous communication and that the letter was not an official communication. Skip forward another 3 days and even more parents start calling and writing asking what the school is talking about. They never got a letter. So, in a final letter, the school gets a copy of the original letter and includes it in a mailing to the entire student body with a second letter explaining that this wasn't official and that they will not be providing condoms at the dance. Y'all are the first people I've ever told. You remember the Juicifruit gum sticks? The ones with the wrapper? I would carefully open the gum and save the wrapper. Then I would carve a piece of soap to look like the gum, rewrap it and give it to my sister. The kicker was that after she first put the gum in her mouth and discovered it was soap, I'd laugh and then offer her a real stick of gum as an apology. That second stick was also soap. She fell for it. That's a lot of dedication to make someone eat soap twice. It was the week before Valentine's Day and I was a senior in high school and my sister was a freshman at the same school. The school was doing a fundraiser where for just $2, you could get these 3 guys from the choir to come to anyone during class and give them a singing telegram. I thought it would be funny to mess with my sister so I bought her a telegram as a joke. The only aspects of delivery I had control of was to who it's delivered to and who it was from, which I just put my name for that part. Remember that. On the day telegrams were delivered, the singers arrived in one of her AP, advanced placement, classes and they had a test that day. They sung their song and she was so embarrassed. Here's where it gets good. She pulls out her computer, everyone had a lone computer from the school, opens Hangouts, and messages one of her friends about what just happened. Part of her message was something along the lines of "I'm so embarrassed, I just want to die," and for the record, she wasn't serious about that, it's just how she put it. Welp, that message got digitally flagged by the school's computers and she was sent to the assistant principal's office for a welfare check just because of that. Our mom got called during this and she explained the whole situation because she knew what I was up to and my sister returned to class. And yet she still blames that last part on me. I will never forget when I passed her in the hall immediately after and she just yelled, "I hate you so much." It was too funny. And that's the story of the best $2 I have ever spent. It's not an amazing prank, but I told the new guy we do a secret Santa thing but for Easter eggs. At the shop he was looking at top of the range 10-pound eggs, and me feeling a bit bad, was trying to convince him to just get a cheap one. But he didn't want to seem cheap. He ends up with a mid-range 5-pound egg. The next day at work, on a little break he leaves to retrieve the egg. Now the best part of this is, I didn't tell anyone I'd done it, so he gives the egg to the boss. With I got you and the secret Santa egg thing. The boss confused, what the frick, I'm creasing with laughter. Everyone is looking around. Like what the fuck. The young lad looks at me all embarrassed. Everyone then realized what I had done and blokes were in bits, crying with laughter. Best bit was he tried to take it back and the boss goes, now you can frick off, it's mine now. I've just got 2 new lads in now as well, so it might work again. Edit. Just read other people's and now mine seems shite. It made me laugh out loud, so a pretty good prank actually. I work at a wastewater treatment plant. We employ cameras to monitor things in the field that we need eyes on at all times. One of these cameras is pointed at the bed of a tractor trailer that is used to haul biosolids to the landfill. The video feed is a constant stream of dewatered sludge falling into the trailer. When one section is full, an operator has to go move the trailer so the solids don't spill out all over the place and make a mess. One year for April Fools, I used the old Control plus Alt plus up arrow to turn the camera feed upside down like 10 minutes before my shift was over. The person taking over for me was much older and much less tech savvy. When he noticed the sludge falling up instead of down, he lost his mind. The next day I got scolded by my boss because my co-worker had a panic attack and then contacted the after-hours emergency tech support line to fix the cameras. Fun police strike again. Fun police strike again. While I agree it's funny, it's something that can mess up the guy's work if he can't fix the cameras, which he couldn't. That can be pretty serious if stuff like hazardous sludge is involved. Early 20s during college. I was sitting in the cafeteria eating and studying when a buddy came and sat down. Made some small talk and then he went to get food. He came back with nothing, explained that he forgot his wallet at home. I offered him some money but he wouldn't take it. I offered to share my food and he declined but jokingly touched the edge of the crust of one of the small slices. I told him he might as well eat it now because I couldn't. I went on to explain that I can't eat food that I know someone else has touched and that I was extremely phobic about it. Fast forward over 10 years later, after we've graduated and he's now not only married but I helped name his second daughter. She's about 3 now. He bought a house built in the 1850s and we've practically rebuilt every aspect of it from the basement to the roof. I finally had to come clean about it. After over a decade of insisting no one could touch anything I was going to eat. His wife believed this. His children believed this. He was pretty moved when I explained that it was all because I didn't like the thought of him going hungry over his pride. Of course he did spend a couple weeks touching just about everything I ate there after that. You should have said he was touched. I work closing shifts at a particular well-known coffee chain. At my location it can get extremely slow in the evenings, so once we finish all the cleaning it's difficult to find something to do. Our solution to this little predicament is to pull pranks on the opening crew and other co-workers, which evolved into a full store prank war. Highlights include rigging the door with a mop head on a string that flies towards you when you open the door, carving a human silhouette out of a cardboard box and leaving it in frightening places like the bathroom or the walk-in fridge, taping pictures of someone's face to the drive-through camera so it's the first thing you see when you turn on the screen, replacing Sharpies with crayons, putting leaves in people's pockets and bags during the fall, gift wrapping people's stuff during December, and more. This was in about 5th grade. I was sitting by the door and saw that a kid sitting by the window was copying all my movements. I made sure he actually was by making some weird movements, and sure enough he was. Then I noticed that behind his head, close to his shoulder, was an open window. I got the idea and swung my head as hard and violently as I could to the side. Of course he did the same also with a lot of speed and slammed his head into the window super hard. He whimpered and went home early because he had a headache. I felt pretty bad, but now every time I remember it puts a grin on my face. Sorry Tom. It's okay. The seizures eventually tapered off. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.